Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. After a very insightful and enlightening observations from our chief guest, Professor K.K. Agarwal, guest of honor, Dr. Devi Singh, and our Vice Chairman, Sri Srivat Jaipuria. Now we move to the next important segment of the discourse in the form of the panel discussion. We are honored with the presence of some of the important academic leaders of India in the panel today. Two distinguished Vice Chancellors from India's premier private universities, Dr. Sunil Rai from University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, UPES Dehradun, Dr. Prabhu Agarwal from Bennett University in Greater Noida. They are also joined by two distinguished directors from India's premier private B schools. One is Government IIM Shillong, Dr. D.P. Goel, and Dr. Devasis Sanyal from Great Lakes, Gurugram. Now, first of all, I will request Dr. Swati to provide the green certificate to all our guests. So may I request Dr. Swati to have the green certificate for all our panel guests today. Can you display the certificate for each panelist, please? This is for Dr. D.P. Goel. I think for everyone, sir, we honor and welcome our guests with the green certificates in which a tree is planted in your name. So Dr. Goel, a tree is planted in your name in West Siang, Arunachal Pradesh, India. Thank you for coming, Dr. D.P. Goel.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Pandey. Thank you very much. Yes, my pleasure.
Next certificate, please. This is for Dr. Devasis Sanyal. Dr. Devasis, welcome and thank you for coming. So a tree is planted in your name, again in West Siang, Arunachal Pradesh, India. Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Next one, Swati.
Oh, it's there, Dr. Sunil.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So this is for Dr. Sunil Rai.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
In your name in Arunachal Pradesh. I think all of us, you can visit Arunachal Pradesh once.
I see it's all for it now.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
And when you are visiting Arunachal, you please also come to IIM Shillong.
Definitely, we'll make it.
All of you. All of you.
That is on the way for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Next, Dr. Prabhu Agarwal, we have shown the green certificate. Prabhu, thank you for coming and welcome to this panel discussion. I think Dr. Prabhu certificate was shown earlier.
That's okay. My privilege. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. So now the way we have structured the panel discussion, that each panel member, distinguished panel member, will speak for 5 to 7 minutes, kind of an opening remarks. And then we'll take questions and answers from the faculty, from the students and the guests who are all here today to hear the important views on New Education Policy 2020. So I request all the participants to write their questions in the chat box. So once every panel member speaks for around 5 to 7 minutes, we can take on the questions with the panel members and then we can take it forward. So today, first let me invite our distinguished Vice Chancellor, Dr. Sunil Rai from University of Petroleum Energy Studies. Dr. Rai was a Vice Chancellor before UPS to MIT ADT University in Pune, Kaziranga University in Assam. He was also associated with Narsi Monji University, SP Jain, Mumbai, and Goa Institute of Management. So thank you, Dr. Rai, for being a part of this panel discussion. And now dais is yours for a 5 to 7 minute discourse on this new education policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At the outset, let me express my sincere thanks to Sri Srivatsa ji and of course my very good friend Dr. D.N. Pandey for giving me this opportunity. It's such a pleasure and honor to be with my seniors, Dr. Devi Singh sir, who is kind of Bhishma Pitama of the management education. And sir, I learned so much from you when you were in MDI and then IIM Lucknow, and all over. So we had been.
You remember we met in Pune also, sir.
Yes, sir. We met in Pune, and sir, we also were roaming around in France. That week,
Absolutely, absolutely.
so,
Don't tell people what we were doing there.
no, sir. We were on educational trips, sir. So that's
Absolutely,
definitely.
absolutely.
And of
Wonderful.
course, my very good friend Devashish, very dear friend Devashish and I, we have kind of grown into this system, and also now with Dr. Agarwal sir, Dr. D.P. Goyal. So I am privileged and honored to be here in this group. What a treat it was to listen to our seniors. Dr. Devi Singh laid out the NEP's details and so beautifully explained by Dr. Agarwal in his very indomitable style, as he always does. Very encouraging, and I think very learning. Few of the things I have made my notes so that I can impress people with all those stories which Dr. Agarwal had been sharing with us, as I would all agree. Lot has been already covered, said. Srivatsaji also covered a lot in his. So I think about NEP, few things are very clear. It's a very welcome document. I think something the nation waited right from Kothari Commission till now. So it's all is very good. But now the challenge is in its implementation. And I compliment Dr. Pandey for this topic of implementation of new education policy 2020, because much has been talked, said, applauded about NEP 2020, but now we have to, as a nation, as a society, we have to now see that this gets implemented. So a few of my thoughts I will just share with you so that some of them may be still repeated. I'm trying to avoid that. I think there are three things. I'm a good fan of Dr. Jagdish Seth's rule of three. So I follow that very religiously. So three aspects I would talk about: change in mindset for implementation of NEP 20, operationalization essentials, and the futuristic and global attitude. So these are three of my suggestions for the implementation of NEP, though all has been so amply covered by Dr. Devi Singh and Dr. Agarwal. What is the change in mindset? Again, for three sets of people. One is the educators themselves, all of us. One is we have to deshackle ourselves from this whole extra importance being given to degrees. In some sense, all of us who had been engaged in PGDM education, frankly, have not got so much carried away by the aspect of degree as was the importance was of skilling people. And this is what I think I keep hearing from all my corporate friends is that the relevance of degrees is actually losing its shine, and companies are going to pick up students only from skills. So rather than visiting campus, now they are actually looking for example, I'm looking for a good engineer. Look at all those teams which have done well in some hackathon, and you come to know that this guy is good. So the whole mode is changing. So complete mindset of changing from deshackling from degrees to skilling, and from cognition to outcome. We had been talking about outcome-based education. Now I think this whole aspect of outcome and is becoming more and more important. Again, by way of repetition in PGDM kind of institutions, and that I have been instituted, and all the fellow colleagues who are here, we had been actually focusing on outcome, and which is why these students are doing so well. So one is educators have to deshackle from degrees and focus more on outcome than cognition. Children will anyway run. The second one is about students. To my student friends, I recommend and suggest that they have to get out from job mentality to careers mentality. So beautifully explained by Dr. Agarwal. You may be selling matchboxes, and next time you may be selling Mercedes car. You don't know as to where you would land up in life. And therefore, it's all about career and not the job. Job is only a stepping stone. Whereas somehow the entire society has got so carried away about these jobs. Even our in accreditation, median salary, maximum salary, and all these things become important. I'm not trying to underplay it, but I'm saying the focus has to be more on career than jobs. And the other one is the students should actually start thinking of becoming contributors than being just consumers of assets, of consumers of whatever the society has to offer, the industrial society has to offer. I mean, you become a contributor, the world will go after you. And this is the mindset the students. And to become contributor, NEP, I think, has enough points that are there. NEP, this NEP actually to me is a student-centric policy. It talks so much about students, wholesome development, and so on and so forth. The third mindset change I am suggesting to regulators, this has been already mentioned by Dr. Devi Singh. Let us stop discriminating between private, public, center, state, and so on and so forth. The NEP says very clearly, a university is university. Nowhere in the world we have so many classifications of universities. Deemed to be university, not so deemed to be university, private, public, central public, and so on and so forth. So a university is a university, as an institution is an institution. So let the uh, distribution of assets be on merit rather than on where somebody belongs. Uh, Regulators also should promote this whole aspect of collaborations. If Jaipuria has got an excellent lab in financial analytics, why should another institution 10 kilometers away create another one? I mean, that lab could be used from Dr. Pandey's institution, or you can go to Great Lakes, where he has created an excellent marketing lab, services marketing lab. Now, but what happens? The points will not come if I don't have on my own lab. Thankfully, now we have regulators like Dr. Agarwal who think very differently. So this is what I suggest as far as mindset is concerned. In operationalizing the curriculum part, it has to be integrative approach. We are doing it in PGDM. The other aspect is it's a more practice-oriented curriculum. As Agarwal Saab said, please let them be out in the market. Business is learned in industry and not as much in classrooms. Molding is done in classrooms, and therefore more project-based learning. Delivery has to be collaborative between industry, institutions, research-based curriculum. I think we must expect students, as so beautifully explained by Agarwal Saab about the tree example. The researching is very important because we don't know how things are going to change. And therefore, this whole aspect of culture of research is to be ingrained in students. Evaluations have to be, of course, continuous and outcome based is the third part that I would suggest as far as operationalization concerned. Why I'm just running over it is because to such an august audience and all of us are already practicing it. Thanks, it finds a reasonable place in NEP 20. Futuristic and global. Here I would suggest that research has to be such that it contributes here and now. If the research is not contributing to betterment of society, to betterment of practice, is a non-research for me. As there was a Harvard paper on research, we said, okay, there are papers published by researchers, evaluated by researchers, used by researchers for indexing and so on and so forth. Where is it for the common use? So research has to be, there is enough problems in the country. I am now here in Uttarakhand. I am seeing all of them and I am working very closely with government of Uttarakhand and urging my students and faculty to kindly get into research that will help. For example, pine tree needles problem we are trying to solve. Plastic waste management we are trying to solve and so on and so forth. So research has to be such that it has to be here and now. The true globalization in the real sense, this mobility of students is not going to happen only in India. It has to be across. Some of us have already got, I know Debashish, myself, we had been working in institutions, again in SP Jain, and good institutions. Pandeyji, of course, had been working abroad. It's very important that our curriculums get aligned internationally. And of course, last and final thing I would like to suggest is preparing students for life. We have just started School for Life here at UPES because what VUCA was being talked about as a fashionable term has become a reality and the pandemic has told us about it. So these children have to learn to be strong not only physically, mentally, emotionally, and of course, not stop trying. And therefore, they have to learn a lot about, so it's important to learn about history. It's important to learn about culture, poetry, art, literature, creativity, and all these will definitely come. What it does is it broadens your horizon. So these were few of my 2 pence for suggestion, Dr. Pandey, and thank you very much for giving this opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for beautifully articulating about change of mindset, job mentality to career mentality, stop discriminating public and private sector universities and institutions, and also about collaborations. So very strongly articulated opening remarks today. Now I request another distinguished panel members, Dr. D.P. Goel, who is a director of IIM Shillong and who happened to be the dean and professor at IMT Ghaziabad and at MDI Gurugram. So may I request Dr. D.P. Goel to have his opening remarks about the theme. Dr. Goel, the dais is yours, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Pandey. First of all, I would like to convey my sincere gratitude for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. And I'm so happy to see and meet virtually, of course, Professor K.K. Agarwal and Dr. Devi Singh, who have been role models, not to me, rather to many people. And thank you, Shrivasji, again, that I could see you there and listen to you. And my dear friends, Devashish Sanyal is also there. Dr. Sunil Rai is there. Prabhu Agarwal is there. Then Dr. Swati is also there, who is just moderating and or coordinating this today's event. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And as just right now, Sunilji has just given the contextual background about the today's panel discussion. I'm happy to see that, yes, as far as the NEP is concerned, it is a welcome step. There is no second opinion in this, because this is now a long wait that after 34 years, we're waiting for this kind of change. It's just not a change, rather I would say it's a transformation, because it's a big, big change. And that is why we are talking about these days, that how we need to implement it, because it is just not evolution, rather it is something which is really disruptive. And for whenever there's some disruption, we need to organize, we need to plan it proper implementation, otherwise it just remains a planning. So this is regarding the beautiful, we can say, NEP 2020, which is there after 34 years. And just to cut the story short, I would just like to look at the three aspects, I would say, that main features of the NEP 2020, which is talks about the holistic, flexible, and multidisciplinary. I think that this is really the need of the hour. And we should have adopted these kind of features of the NEP, because it talks about holistic, that when we're talking about the learning, then it is just not learning by rote, rather it's experiential learning. And that is what we are talking about, holistic development of the learner, of the student, of the participant. So, and then the second aspect is the flexibility, that's a flexible approach. So when we talk about the flexible, as we were aware that earlier, if you are only a doctor, or you are an engineer, or you are a lawyer, then you are a cream, and then maybe some other. So, but when we talk about the flexible, that why like it cannot be various aspects, that it all depends on the student, that what kind of the course he wants to do, and may not be very clear, maybe just like after 10 plus 2 may not be very clear, then why it cannot be given more and more flexibility. So like that is the reason why we are talking about that multiple exits, multiple entries, and then multiple or many multiple languages also, and then curriculum and courses. That is what, of course, like here, we are all having that experience that we are from the autonomous institutions or from the IIMs or IITs or university system. But we know that majority of the universities, they are the affiliating universities in the country. And there are many colleges. And we just look at the colleges, what they are doing or what they were doing so far. They were required to giving the sessions or the lectures, because everything was done by the universities, whether admission, whether it is the course curriculum, whether it is the evaluation. So everything was done by the universities. And then the colleges, so many colleges in the country, they were only required to give the teaching. So in other that way, all the professors or the teachers who are teaching in these affiliated colleges, they were not exposed to that what kind of board of studies is all about, what is board of governors, or how the courses are designed, and then how the evaluation should be done. So experiential learning, which we're talking about today, it was not emphasized. Rather, something was given by the university, and it would continue for years to come before rather changes, because I still remember that Fortran language we used to teach, and then it was when even after Fortran was not at all, it was there, then still in some of the universities, we were asked to set the question papers. At that time, we were really wondering that how come, it's really the requirement of these days, but then because syllabus were not changed for quite many years, that was the reason that why that is the problem. So but these days, I think that this policy, it really talks about that we should be very, very flexible as far as curriculum or the courses, etc. is concerned. And especially the college should not now be the norm of the time. Rather, each and every college must be an autonomous institution. So the moment we say autonomous, it means that the institution would enjoy the autonomy, not in terms of only academics, rather in financials as well as decision making. So I think that this is a big, big change, because we are already we are lucky that we are in the autonomous institutions or in institutions of national importance. So we are doing all these things from the day one. Even AICT, rather, they are saying that yes, you are free to design some of the courses, offer electives, and then see that how experiential learning can happen. Even the continuous evaluation is also allowed, and then the grading is also done. So this is how that as far the autonomous institutions are doing as of now. But we are talking about, in general, the education system in the country. So when we similarly, when we third approach, there are third feature, there's a multidisciplinary approach. This is again, it talks about that it is just not only the institution should not only be only agriculture, for example, or engineering institution, or computer application institution, or it's like just some other institutions, as we were just mentioning. Sunil Rai was also mentioning that why there should not be only and only university. There should not be subcategories. That's public, it is private, it's agriculture, it is technical, and so on and so forth, or deemed, or whatever, center, state. But a university is a university. So this is the concept. I think that this is a really welcome step, and we are expecting that with some legal framework changes, it should be implemented, and it then, of course, it would be very, very useful for the country. And when we're talking about the multidisciplinary, we are saying that it is modernized, and it is localized, and then it is globalized. So it is just not only because the fashion says that it has to be global, and then some students are coming to our institute and some students are going to other institute, then we'll get some points and that becomes a globalization. Probably, again, it's the mindset that we need to change in a big, big way. That's the reason why students, they must understand, first of all, the contextual, in the context of the area. So the contextual learning is really very, very important. So it should be from localized to globalized. It is just not only the globalized. Like, for example, we are here in the Northeast, and then we have made a mandatory requirement for each and every student of MBA here that they must spend some time, 7 to 10 days, with some local people just to understand their way of life, so that they really, really understand the compassion. They really understand what poverty means. They really understand that how the rural life or the people they are going through. Only then they would be talking about strategy, which otherwise we are teaching in the B schools many a time, but without understanding the compassion and understanding the reality. So sometimes it becomes abstract and it becomes difficult for the students. So this is again, this new policy, it really emphasizes on a multidisciplinary approach, and it talks about that we should be modernized. That's, of course, we can say because of the COVID, that we have really become the modernized, like that today. We are now meeting virtually so many friends and so many other. I think that earlier, of course, 10 years back also, there was some platforms, video conferencing and all, but it was not that common. But it is just now become possible. And then every institution, they've also changed so quickly to this new norm. So when we're talking about the modernization, that is why we're talking about these days blended learning. It is just not only online or offline learning. Rather, it is a blended or it is a flexi and as well as hybrid model of learning. So this is again that we want to leverage the technology in this new education policy in a big, big way. So this is again that the earlier, we can say, the negative points, because it was a rigid separation of disciplines, that either engineering or, because I remember that AICT, for example, in the previous years, they would say, if you have PGDM, it's fine. You should have such and such land, such and such other infrastructure. But suppose you want to start MCA in the same premises, you would not be allowed. Then there must be a boundary to such and such land should be there, such and such resources should be different. Because these days we are happy that we are talking about that why we should waste the resources. If we're having a good lab with us, then even for the 10 kilometer away, it could be pooled, it could be used by others. So I think that this is a fantastic, we could say, mindset change of the regulator or the higher level people, that this is the need of the hour. So this is what, like we are talking about, the change in mindset at the regulation level first of all, and then at the educator level, and then at the student level. So this is a multi-pronged, we can say, a strategy which is required for the implementation. But as far as implementation is concerned, I think that already the autonomous institutions, they are doing a lot because they are having their own boards of study, they are having their own board of governors, and they are free or they are autonomous, they can take decisions. But with the new changed new policy, I think that this is a big transformation which is going to happen. And of course, there are challenges, but once we have the mindset, right mindset, and there should not be an issue. So this is, of course, it's a big step. That it's a fantastic step, we can say, and it's a good framework that the total entire system of the country, it is going to be changed, because this is, we would say, the big reform in the education system which should happen. With these words, I will just now say that yes, it's a good opportunity for all of us to listen and to share some of the concepts and some of the ideas. Thank you very much, Dr. Pandey, please.
Thank you, Professor Goyal, for touching upon the heart of the policy, that is the holistic approach, flexible approach, and multidisciplinary approach in education. So with this, may I request the audience who are attending the session to please write your questions in the chat box so that we can ask our distinguished panelists once they speak, 5 to 7 minutes, each one of them. So now I invite our distinguished Vice Chancellor, Dr. Prabhu Agarwal, who is a Vice Chancellor at Bennett University in Greater Noida. And he was a Vice Chancellor before to NIIT and OP Jindal University also. The most important part is that Dr. Agarwal has spent more than 19 years as an Associate Dean and a Professor at prestigious William and Mary College in the USA. So I request him to bring some international perspective to this policy and try to compare how it happens in US and what gaps we have in India and how this can be bridged. Dr. Agarwal, that is yours, please. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Dr. Pandey, for those words of encouragement. Mr. Jaipuria, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. My esteemed panelists, Dr. Rai, Dr. Goyal, Dr. Sanyal, Dr. Agarwal, thank you for being part of this discussion. I know at the risk of, and Dr. Devi Singh, thank you. At the risk of not repeating myself, and so much has been said by Dr. Agarwal before, and Dr. Devi Singh, Dr. Srivats Jaipuria, Dr. Rai, and Dr. Goyal. So it's kind of hard to bring more flavor to this. So I think I'm glad Dr. Pandey has asked me to bring an international perspective. And again, I don't want to sound prescriptive because India has its Indian problems and Indian situations. And I know that our solutions have to be localized, but I still find a lot of things that I want to talk about. I think the new education policy, and how does it align to what I have been subjected to for about 20 years abroad? So I got my entire graduate education abroad, and then I taught there for 20 years, and I did both academic research as well as institutional building activities. And if Dr. Pandey asks me, the first thing that jumps out is the whole idea of flexibility, which is a word that many of you have used before. The concept of flexibility in the Western education system is rooted in, it's deeply rooted, meaning the students have tremendous amount of flexibility. The NEP is trying to think about how to go in that direction. So students have pathways to do anything. You know, a student generally will join a university but will not declare a major. He or she will take 1.5 to 2 years of general education requirements, which kind of exposes him or her to a very liberal arts foundational courses. And then he or she decides if she wants to pursue engineering, she wants to pursue, or he wants to pursue business, a business degree, or wants to pursue a career in medicine. I mean, it's crazy. I've known people who have for 3 years been in a business school and then said, nah, I don't like what I'm doing and I want to go into medicine. So that flexibility, and there are pathways of flexibility. Students can take advanced placement classes in 12th grade, 11th grade, so they can start completing college credits. The flexibility of no time-bound degree. I mean, why should a BTech take 4 years to complete? Why not 2.5 years if students want to take extra credits in a semester? So those flexibilities are rooted in the system. The other issue is the flexibility of, no, I don't need a 4-year degree. This obsession with a 4-year degree in India is crazy. It should be, I want to go to a 2-year college, a vocational degree. I want to be a heating and vacuum, HVAC engineer or something, and I just need a 2-year education. So I can go an associate degree. I attend 2 years of a community college, and then I can decide what I want to do. So that first and foremost concept in the Western education system is on flexibility and creating multiple pathways. So the NEP definitely is pointing towards that. The multidisciplinarity that you all talk about is also highly rooted in the Western education system. The concept of liberal arts education, almost 50% of credits that a student is taking in a university system abroad has nothing to do with his declared major or minor. Okay, so that's what we call multidisciplinarity. The third thing, which is vastly different, is what I call faculty empowerment. Faculty empowerment and faculty autonomy. And it's unbelievable that I've spent 20 years there and nobody ever asked me, what am I teaching? Whom am I teaching to? What my assessments will be? Whether I have to give a final exam, don't give a final exam, I don't want to do anything. Never a question was raised ever to me as a faculty member there. So, I mean, we're talking about institutional autonomy. As institutions, we should talk about faculty autonomy. How do you at the micro level, what do you mean by autonomy? The government wants to, you want the government to give you autonomy, but you don't want, you have to, as institutional leaders, start giving autonomy to faculty as to figure out. I mean, here you have to upload your syllabus on this system. Everything has to be prescribed to you. 45% have to be end of exam, this exam, that exam. So that does not exist in the Western education system. The faculty is supreme when it comes to the classroom, and that we have to understand. The third thing is faculty governance. I mean, we are so administrative heavy out here in this country that the faculty is relegated to a very suboptimal position when it comes to governance. All right, almost every decision in a Western university is made by faculty. And are we willing, as in country, as institutions of higher learning, to give that autonomy? We're talking about promotion, we're talking about curriculum, we're talking about new courses to be offered, we're talking about tenure systems, we're talking about research budgets. It is highly, highly faculty governed. So I think I just wanted to bring some of these points out. You know, it's crazy because I always look at the fact that as faculty members, we have never been trained to become faculty members, right? I don't remember, I was 26 when I got my PhD, and the first class I taught was to an executive MBA program. And the average age of the student was 35. And I felt like I was thrown in a pack of wolves who were out there to chew me out. Who trains us for teaching? Nobody does, right? We just have to learn on the job. Okay, and unfortunately, the faculty that is coming out today from Indian institutions and joining Indian universities are now basically victims of their own mindsets. They have seen their professors teach them, they're replicating the same models. And we are asking and demanding so much from them, right? And so we have to think about this. And last but not least, you know, measurements will drive behaviors. How much do we really measure a faculty's research output? And is everybody cut out to be a researcher? So we have to really ask that deep question. Is there room for the university systems where some faculty members excel at teaching? They should be rewarded for that. They should be recognized for that. Research universities should definitely focus on research outcomes and how to measure them. Institutional building activities are vital. There are certain streams, like I know business schools struggle a little bit more to get outside funding monies as opposed to engineering and medical colleges because of the nature of the teaching programs. So I think these are issues, and the pressure of the tenure system in the Western societies make it almost imperative that the student, a new faculty member, excels in the first 5 or 6 years. Otherwise, he or she does not necessarily make it through the tenure process. And it's a very low success rate for tenure process. So I think these are some of the critical questions that I'm raising here, comparing. I'm not saying they're prescriptive, that they apply to us necessarily. But if I look at the NEP as a whole, the concepts of flexibility, multiple entry exit points, multidisciplinarity, allowing students to choose their majors after they have come into the system, a greater emphasis on vocational training, linking, as you said, that Dr. Agarwal said, accreditation is going to be the new normal when it comes to regulatory frameworks. I think those are extremely welcomed moves. Of course, as all of you have already pointed out, the issue of implementation is where the rubber meets the road. And the question of trust between public, private universities and the government and the regulatory bodies is foremost. This concept, I mean, 75% of the students graduating from higher education institutions in India are actually coming out of private universities. And as long as the government does not believe or does not give it the right trust factor and builds on that trust, we are going to face several challenges going forward as private universities. So it's a welcome move. I've had the opportunity to sit down with Dr. Kasturi Rangan, who was the author of the NEP, and his wisdom and thought processes were shared by me. And I really think the intent is there. And I hope that, everything that's happened, COVID has given us an opportunity to revamp the way we are looking at education in India. And, I think we should not be obsessed with degrees. We should be creating careers, as somebody correctly pointed out. And the new normals, technology-enabled delivery of education will take off. Whoever and anybody who believes that that's not going to happen will be in for a surprise. I like the fact that accreditation and linkages to quality are important. So I think those things are moving us in the right directions. It's an exciting time to be an institutional builder in the education sphere in India. And I think all of us here who have spent our entire careers in education in some form or fashion have a responsibility today to see this through, to work at it at a micro level, not just a macro level. So thank you very much for indulging me for my 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thanks, Prabhu, for a very powerful address. I think you touched the most important part of discussion today about faculty empowerment, faculty autonomy, and the most important is faculty governance, apart from flexibility and multidisciplinary approach of NEP. So I think we'll take up the questions later on. Again, I request the panel participants to just ask questions in the chat box. So now we have the last panelist. I request Dr. Debasis Sanyal, who is the director of Great Lakes in Gurugram, who has been director of Dean of the School of Management in Narsimonji, and he was leading the campus of SP Jain in Singapore. And also he was with Dean of MDI Gurugram. So with such a vast and rich experience in schools of management of prestige, Dr. Devasis Sanyal, most welcome, and dais is yours for your opening remarks on New Education Policy 2020. Dr. Sanyal, you are on mute. Please unmute.
Thank you, Dr. Pandey
Thank
and
you.
Dr. Mr. Jaipuria for inviting me. And more thanks because you have given me an opportunity to not only see some of my old friends over here, but also to convey my regards to them. So I will take just a few minutes to convey my regards to Dr. Devi Singh, who was, I think I met him in 1998. It's more than 22 years I know him. He was my director at MDI Gurgaon. So my Dr. Singh, I hope he's listening to me. And you still remain young, huh? And your dress sense has not changed. And you've always been younger than the age you are. And when I see you this time also, I feel that way. So it's a pleasure seeing you and hearing you out. Dr. D.P. Goel and Dr. Sunil Rai are my very old friends. I know Dr. D.P. Goel for donkeys, yes, maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 years. I had a lot of association with him. It's a pleasure meeting you, and my regards to you, Dr. Singh, Dr. Goel, and my very old friend with whom I work day to day. And I remember the time we used to go out twice a day to have chai and cookie. A kuka he used to call, because of various reasons that I'll not tell you today. But yes, it was a pleasure. And it is an honor for me to meet the esteemed speakers who are here, Mr. Pandey, and others who were there just now, the Vice Chancellor Bennett, And now I'll go to my topic, and I think in the initial remark, Dr. Singh has covered the challenges so beautifully in his keynote address that I have very few things to talk about the challenges. But yes, all my learned speaker before has beautifully portrayed the things with the best practice as well as what is required and the higher education skills, especially in specific to management. But so because most of them have spoken on higher education and management education, I thought it would be good to speak few things about, because the topic is implementation of new education policy to other sector, means primary and undergraduate also. So to say so, what I want to tell you that if you look at NEP is going to change, introduce a 5+3+3+4 structure, where early childhood education will be a part of formal education. So NEP 2020 will require the revamping of curriculum. That is very critical because it's not management education only. It is we are talking about primary, tertiary, and undergraduate also. So where content has to be so made that it provides space for critical thinking, developing individual with 21st century skills, and curriculum and pedagogy needs to be restructured to attain these goals. Again, if you see, the curriculum needs to be in accordance with the national curriculum framework that has been stated. So educators will be required to rethink the learning content, the rubrics to be used to capture the learning content, and how to modify the textbook accordingly to suit the 21st century requirement. Now let me tell about training aspect, which has been already mentioned, teachers and training by Dr. Singh, the requirement of faculty across the huge requirement of faculty. And not only in higher education, I can tell you it is more in the primary and secondary education. So there, the training of teachers will be a very important aspect, because the pedagogy is changing. The shift is from teacher-centric to student-centric. So one has to understand the amount of training required to be given to the teachers for the NEP success. No one can compare. I didn't find the critic of the government to complain against the NEP document. It's one of the best vision document we had for some time. But the implementation will depend upon how we take it forward, how we are going to educate our teachers and faculty to a great extent, especially in primary and tertiary, also in higher education. The studies suggest, a lot of studies have seen, and some suggest that about 250 million students are estimated to be in K-12 by 2030. So think of, we will need something about 7 to 8 million teachers if you have to go. So there will be a huge crisis, and we need to address that crisis also. It's a big challenge. Technology aspect is very important. The NEP 2020 lays emphasis on leveraging the advantage of technology in making the youth future ready. If that is the case, developing digital infrastructure such as digital classroom, remote expertise-driven teaching modules, physical, to bridge the gap between physical teaching and laboratory infrastructure, these are big challenges for us to understand, especially when finance is a big impediment. Cost associated with building highly digital infrastructure is abnormal. It's is really, really very high. So yes, government is committing, and I'm quite sure this year government couldn't commit much in this budget because of financial problems, because of post-COVID. But I'm quite sure, and with the commitment government has said, I'll look forward for 6% of GDP commitment, because without that, this humongous dream that we have got or to implement NEP will be lost. Now, and especially when we talk about technology, one has to understand that rural areas, many rural areas are still not internet friendly. So I'm quite sure these challenges are solvable. And so without this internet friendly bringing rural into digital learning platform will be that much difficult. So government should work on improving the basic infrastructure that will support the digital infrastructure in all areas across the country. Big task. Last but not the least is the promotion of continuous tracking of learning outcome. Why I'm saying so? Because NEP focuses on formative assessment, that is multiple assessment tools, and on a continuous basis from learning rather than summative assessment. So when we are talking about this, so that means school teachers in management education, we are doing it for many years now, multiple assessment process, continuous assessment we are doing, but in school level and undergraduate level is not so. So continuous assessment requires schools and teachers to use innovative evaluation approach and assignment. This approach demands that naturally to do so many evaluation, and that too with so less of faculty, the faculty will need support. So we need technological intervention to solve it. So what are those technical interventions that we require? I'm quite sure in days to come, edutech company and educational institute must have to work hand to hand to provide some of the best solutions if you want to achieve the success of NEP. Now, government needs to have a systematic phased approach to successfully implement it. So thus, I would like emphasis on making education systematic, holistic, flexible, and aligned to the needs of 21st century. As I'm a supporter of this because the NEP document also says so. But it's a humongous task, I can tell you. Coming to management education, a lot of things were happening before COVID also happened. The hybrid mode was slowly taking part. If you see, the synchronized and asynchronized method of learning had taken a big leap forward in last 3-4 years. Before COVID, I can tell you, people were using more symptomatic and asymptomatic tools, because you see, and this has happened more after the AI and ML and all exponential technology that has come in. After 2007-8 financial debacle, a lot of new things come in. MOOCs came in a big way. People thought the MOOCs will replace a lot of classroom teaching, but it didn't happen. The MOOCs not developed a connect. It was not exciting, and users were not very happy or not enjoying after some time. So it didn't. Content was excellent. Most of the content was excellent, but didn't get the reward that it should have because they could not get the connect with the user. But in the last few years, after especially as I mentioned, after AI and ML and all this technological intervention, this has become very exciting. A lot of experimentation going in this field. And I will not be surprised if gaming is used to teach an accounting subject. Think of that. If through game you can learn accounting, what an enjoying thing it will be. So these are going to happen. It's happening already. COVID has given a fillip. So I can see that, and especially NEP envisages a dream in higher education, where we see gross enrollment ratio in higher education should go up from, say now, 26% to 50% by another 15 years, double. It's a humongous task. In undergraduate space, we have got at least around about 40,000 undergraduate institutes, brick and mortar, I would say. If just simple linear, if you have to go, then we have to go into 80,000. Some may say that present institution will be given more autonomy to engage with students, undergraduate students, but whether a reach across the country will be attained by that or not, one has to see. But the only thing which can solve or help us to attain that NEP's target of 50% by 2035, the only way to do it will be, I think so, the hybrid mode or online mode. With the online mode, what will happen, that good online education will be the order of the day. As Dr. Agarwal has mentioned, the cost imparting education has to go down. Why an engineering course has to be done in 4 years? Why? And let me tell you, and I take just one more minute. I think I'm in the time. I take one more minute to allow me. What the education system does, especially management education system does, it does 3 things actually. One, it transfers knowledge, transfer of knowledge. Second, peer-to-peer learning. And third, one-to-one teacher-student learning. Now, I can see what will happen, and it has to happen if we have to move fast and bring more students into the ambit of learning. Then I can see the most of the things will happen. The knowledge transfer part will go to substantial extent to online mode. The peer-to-peer learning will still need physical contact because all the soft skills are learned through peer-to-peer learning. Maybe the conflict resolution, maybe a team building attitude, maybe giving leadership skill. All that happens when problems and assignments and through debates, they learn from each other. That has to be this, that is in the campus. But the third aspect is that faculty and teacher one-to-one, student one-to-one interaction, or faculty student to student, or faculty to faculty. This has to stay to a great extent. Some part will be, of course, the coursework part may be on online mode. So going forward in management education and also in the realm of implementing NEP 2020, I'm quite sure hybrid learning will be the order of the day. And that should be the order of the day according to I think. One more thing before because it's a forum where we can raise points, and I wish Dr. Agarwal was here, and if someone can, I think now autonomous institutes like Great Lake or any of the autonomous to by AICT and UC are coming together. I think there's a case like engineering colleges are allowed to give undergraduate degree, good institution which has got good what is called accreditation numbers by National Board of Accreditation, we also be allowed to start undergraduate courses. Like management institute can start BBA or the economics, it's within there. If you don't get the volume, as Dr. Agarwal said, if you don't get the volume, it's not possible to sustain good teachers. And you get certain teachers, you have to pay them good salary. And so students are required. Undergraduate provides us the opportunity. The degree giving opportunity is only now in management for university, but good standalone institutes are not allowed by the AICT management student talking about. Not is not allowed to give undergraduate. So I think there's a case which government may consider and should consider if we have to increase gross enrollment ratio in higher. With this, I leave my words. Thank you for hearing me out. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Professor Sanyal. Thank you very much for talking about curriculum, training of teachers, and also about digital infrastructure in remote and rural areas. Without that, a lot of parameters of success can't be achieved from India's perspective. So now we have time for discussion from all the panel members about the questions which the attendees have asked. But since we have a limited time, we are left with hardly 20 minutes now. So I will take a few questions, and I hope that each question will be asked to one panel member, but other panel members can chip in. So first question I'm asking myself, I'm asking to Professor Sunil Rai, who has such a strong career in India, right from SP Jain to MIT to Kaziranga to UPS now. He's such a strong teacher, very valuable academic leader. My question is, sir, when I read NEP, the statement which I found is that the teacher must be at the center of education. The policy must help re-establish teachers. So may I request you to tell us that what steps all of us have to take to make this happen in India? Sir, you are on mute.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. The teacher and students, these are the two main players as far as education happening is concerned. While NEP, of course, has talked a lot about provisions have been made for students, it was very clearly talked about by Dr. Prabhu Agarwal have talked about it, about the kind of respect that the teacher should get. By respect is what we mean is not just trying to bow to them, but trying to allow them to do what they want to do. And towards that end, I think the mindset has to change, because the order, as I was explained in one of the talks, was you want to start an educational institution, the first thing is land, then the buildings, the finances to run it, and then running after the chasing up the files to get the approvals, then running after the agencies to get the students, and finally whatever is left is you go to the teachers. How nice it would have been that we have some great teachers first, and then around them we have built. I'm trying to do this when I joined here at UPES. Basically, I found that there were certain gaps as far as certain areas of learning were concerned. We have gone and I have changed all the rules as far as engagement is concerned. That what is important is that I want that person. So we wanted robotics. Somebody has joined now from UK who actually had been playing with robots for last 25 years. Now the whole center for robotics is being built around the teacher. So he is the center. And of course, there are a lot of students who are participating, DRFs, etc. I think it's only a matter of attention and focus. If we start realizing that that is important, then things will automatically fall in place. And the numbers, as were rightly mentioned by Dr. K.K. Agarwal, sir, with a strength of 120, 2,000, 100, this and all that, we cannot manage to hire good teachers. It's not only just in terms of money, because it takes a complete ecosystem for somebody to come from a distant place and come to all the way to a place like Dehradun or where you are at Noida and things like that. And therefore, I think it's only a matter of focus and attention. In real life, you realize this is important, you will do it. So I agree with you no less that the only piece that I want to add to it is, as was just mentioned, that where are the training for teachers? Frankly speaking, at least in school education, there is a B.Ed. There is a formal way of educating and preparing a teacher. Where is a formal system for preparing a university student? Dr. Prabhu Agarwal also mentioned it, that many times we just fall in, all of us, Devashish, myself, all of us, Panditji, Abhi, we all just landed up one day in the class and then we kept on experimenting. And there's so much of collective knowledge. There should be some kind of an academy of, preparing teachers at level when they will teach for researching, and very importantly, when they take on responsibilities as HODs and deans. So I think this whole way of learning, the whole life cycle of a teacher development through some kind of a collaborative system, I will not say regulatory system, is the best way to do it. Panditji.
Thank you very much. My friend Nilanjan, Dean of Bennett University, has asked a question that on the one hand, recruiters are not able to find talent. On the other hand, students are not able to find the jobs. There's a disconnect between the industry and the institutes. Now, NAPs tries to address them, but how this disconnect can be resolved? So, Professor Devashish, can you just chip in and answer Nilanjan's question, this?
Thank you for the question. Lovely question, actually, to be honest. Very good question. This dichotomy lies, but this narrowed down or solved to a great extent if the curriculum that we impart is relevant. Relevance is very important. Now, I can give my example from Great Lakes. Great Lakes is a pioneer in the field of analytics. So our focus is on analytics. So now what is happening? The recruiters who are coming, they are asking for finance with analytics background, marketing with analytics background, other than pure analytics. So or machine learning skills, etc. So whether we are the one or the first to introduce specialization in this field. So yes, the curriculum needs to be upgraded, and at the same time, I'll tell you, many top institutes in India are finding it difficult to satisfy the need of the recruiters, and recruiters have to go empty-handed at times. So where we are failing is that maybe we are teaching something which may not be that relevant for the timing. Think of accounting course. Now, I think now accounting course will require blockchain teaching, a part of its curriculum. Think also similarly supply chain, how blockchain can be built in the course curriculum in supply chain management. So there are a lot of things which will come in. How the course content, I'll tell you, of each course that we deliver has to be modified and remember, we impart general management, but the content requirement has to be contemporary, or not only contemporary but future.
Thank you. Thanks, Professor Devashish. Thank you very much. There is a question from Dr. Swati Agarwal. there is a lot of debate going on about the curriculum architecture in a management college. So what would be a forward-looking curriculum in your view if you try to incorporate the guidelines and a lot of policy advice from NEP? This question I request Dr. DP Goel to take up. Dr. Goel, please.
Yes, Dr. Pandey, I think it's a very relevant question because these days we're talking about academic curriculum and redesigning of the curriculum. Because as far as the NEP is concerned, it talks about that there should not be any distinction between curriculum and extracurricular activities or curricular activities and extracurricular activities. Rather, we are talking the holistic approach. So as Professor Agarwal also talking that first of all, we should be engineer and then only the super specialization and then maybe something else. So this is again, when we start from that, first of all, we're looking at the holistic approach, then it means that we are focusing at the learner. So because when we are talking about the learner, that it should be the that how the learning should take place. It is not that what should the learner should learn. Rather, there's a how, the process, which is really important. So as far as the core courses are concerned, yes, it's fundamental, must be there. Because I just like to take an example. I was in engineering college earlier in Thapar Institute, and I used to wonder there because it was a mathematics for engineers. I used to wonder in one of the board of studies, I just was raising that why. First of all, let us just give the basic fundamental concepts of mathematics. And then, of course, it could be there for engineering applications, whatever it is. So this is what I think that it is really makes a lot of sense when we talk about that. First of all, we should be focusing on the fundamentals, what is really required for the product. So that because we are talking about that a gap, what industry is looking at and what institutions are giving to the product. So again, this is also very, very important because when we are designing the course curriculum, it is left to the academicians. Sometimes, again, it's another point that just like a doctor, that only, first of all, a doctor must be a doctor in order to teach the would-be doctors. Just like in a medical college, there must be a lab or there must be a hospital attached to it. Similarly, for the management education or any other such education, then where we want that these gaps should be bridged between the industry and the academia, and that is the course curriculum. Because we need to focus on what is the basis, what kind of product we want to be going to make, and based on that, then that is the product. It is not any other factor. Rather, what is required for the product or what the industry is looking for. So this is again, that when we're talking about that, what kind of training faculty should have, besides research, besides teaching, rather a faculty should also be sent for the industry or in the industry for some on-the-job learning, because this is the real experience that a faculty would come back and then can understand that what the industry is looking for. So as far as core versus electives is concerned, I think that it all depends on the requirement of the industry and then what kind of product we are going to make. So this is how, in a nutshell, we can just talk about
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your answer. There is one question from two faculty members, Dr. Poonam Sharma and Dr. Ankur Chauhan. New education policy paves the way for international campuses. So what opportunities and challenges do you see coming because of this? And Ankur Chauhan adds to this that if you see there's universities coming to India, would it compel to bring more academic freedom in institutes governed by Indians in public-private universities as of now? Dr. Prabhu Agarwal is the right person to answer this. Dr. Prabhu, please.
Thanks for the question. That's a tough one to answer because this is such a different thought process here. But I don't think a international university coming to India will necessarily come in as a pure play international university. I think it's going to come into India and there will be a strong concept of collaborating. So some of the private and so-called public universities, but private mostly, have a real opportunity to provide the infrastructure, provide the student services, and provide the student handholding, the student experiences on their campus, and also benefit from the academic rigor that will come with the internationalization of universities in India and the collaborations that are happening. This is a model that a lot of Western universities have successfully implemented in the Far East countries and the Middle Eastern countries. The same kind of, again, concepts will roll into India within the Indian context. And again, it will be a very interesting phenomenon to watch as to how the regulatory space evolves in this direction. The business of education, and I'm using the word the business, because education is a business at some point in time. You have to create a financially sustainable model. Will also be closely watched whether an international university can just come and plant itself in India and be able to successfully cater to their financial needs, given the vast differences on what faculty remuneration and everything happens. So, I mean, I'm just reading Poonam's question. This will surely bring in high quality programs and further raise the quality bar for all our institutions. What opportunities and challenges do you see coming because of this? I think it's just, if this happens, and this will happen in a limited way to begin with, opportunities will be there now for our students to get a globalized education with dual degrees, training programs, and multiple other choices that will happen. Challenges, as I've said, is going to be navigating the regulatory space, getting the international faculty. Now, if this is digitally enabled, then some of those challenges can be overcome. So I'm trying to give you a long-winded answer to a very complex question.
Thanks, Prabhu. I think because of time constraint, we can't ask more questions now. We have just last two questions. One to probably Dr. Devashish Sanyal. Dr. Neeraj Anand from University of Petroleum has asked a very interesting question that, can we form a group of students across institutes by which they can collaborate on various projects and they can do justice to the word collaboration among the students? Dr. Sanyal, please.
Yeah, I'll just answer that. Before that, I'll just add on to Dr. Agarwal what he said. And
Right.
he rightly put everything. Only I want to say, why should an international institute come over at this point of time? Because our constitution says that we have to operate in a not-for-profit organization.
Right.
So they do not see. I have spoken to many of my friends abroad, and they do not find a level, any reason to invest in India at this point of time. Good institutes I'm talking about, for whatever reason it is. They only can collaborate with us. And some of the smaller universities who are having problem of getting the right number of students are trying to collaborate so that first 2 years they will be with us. Last 2 years they can get the students in their campus. And nothing more, nothing less. So we, as Dr. Agarwal has said, the regulatory framework has to be seen how this pan out to help this foreign institutes come to India. Now, coming to that, collaboration is possible. And I think good question has been asked, is possible. And we have done it in my previous organization, that is NMIMS, where a group of students across the globe used to work on a project. And it was successful. Over a period of 6 months, it can be possible. One, and collaboration is the word. And I think Dr. Sudhir had mentioned, why should in the same locality, same lab will be there in 2 places? It's better to collaborate and make it. Why Bloomberg terminal, 12 terminals or 14 terminals you can get, it's cheap, but you cannot get the ROI. So why can't the cost can be shared, or someone can pay a rental and use that Bloomberg terminal across 2 campuses? And why another digital lab can be made, which can be used by another campus? Collaboration has to be done if NEP's target of higher education and also liberal arts. We never talked about much in this forum about credit course getting transferred across the universities. So that is also part. Liberal arts will play a big part in the curriculum as per NEP. So all this, if all this has to be implemented, we need collaboration, which has been also emphasized by Dr. Rai.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Sanyal. I think I can take up the last question because we have got so many questions, but we have to finish at 4:30. So my last question to Dr. Sunil Rai. The question is from a faculty of Jaipuria, Dr. Salini Verma. Can communication skills be taught or only honed and polished further? I mean, this happens to not just communication skills. There are certain subjects we always in dilemma, like ethics in management. Can this be taught, or this can be groomed by some way? So please answer, sir. Thank you.
I think more than teaching, it's the second option is much better. If you want to learn about your mobile phone features, if I want to find out what has to be done to my mobile, I'm not able to download, I will not go to Devashish. I will go to Devashish's daughter because she will definitely tell me as to how in the world to use. And suppose if Devashish's daughter is not able to tell me, I will go to the grandchild of Devashish because that fellow is 100% going to tell me. What I'm trying to say is, and examples are there right in front. If all of us who are following this Indian Idol shows like that on the TV, the chap comes from Balia and comes from remote town in Bihar, village in Bihar, and he comes 3 months down the line. The way that fellow is dressing, the way that fellow is holding mic, allow people to change. All that thing is done is allow people to change. We all learned communications like this. Pandit ji, हम लोग तो उधर गांव से चले आने वाले लोग हैं. And today we are able to speak English and trying to be in the company of Dr. Prabhu Agarwal. So it is basically, it was meant as a compliment, sir. I'm using you taking you as a benchmark for the right kind of diction and the right kind of, so these things let us remove the word teaching from our mind as teachers. Nothing can be taught. We can become facilitators, let people learn, create environment for people to learn, and they will learn not only communication skills, any skills for that matter.
And I think it's important to distinguish communications with English and English with communications.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't think we are talking English language as communications.
Absolutely.
So as long as we keep that distinction clear in our minds, then I think we can do a great job.
Yes, I think, but Prabhu, when we talk about communication in India, we primarily talk about English. Unfortunately, this is the unfortunate part of it.
It's unfortunate.
But you're right.
Well, it's the language. It's the language of business. So as business group of, so yeah, it is true to some aspect. But yeah, so.
So thank you. I think I would like to convey my regards, thanks, and I'm honored to have this distinguished panel today. And then we had a great inaugural session led by Professor K.K. Agarwal and a brilliant views by Dr. Devi Singh. And our Vice Chairman had the welcome address, which set the tone for today's deliberations. So, sir, I would just thank you all for coming today and delivering this NAP, very important deliberations on NAP. With your request and permission,